Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. Today we will be discussing Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 3, text 22. Name pardhasti kartavyam trishu lokeshu kinchana nanavaptam avaptavyam varta eva cha karmani. So Krishna, he's giving his own example. In the previous verse, he gave the example of Janaka Maharaj, Janakadayaha, Janaka Maharaj, etc. are people who have no reason to act as a Kshatriya or a Brahmana or Vaishya, but they acted nevertheless. Why? To teach people how to act. Loka Sangraham. So here Krishna is saying, similarly for me, Name Kartavyam Upardha, Name Kartavyam Asti, there is nothing, there is no Kartavyam for me, there is no prescribed duty for me. Trishu Lokeshu, in all the three worlds, Kinchana, Trishu Lokeshu Kinchana. Nanavaptam, Na Anavaptam. Anavaptam means I am in want of something. No, Na Anavaptam. I am not in want of anything. Avaptavyam. There is nothing that I need to obtain by doing this work in this world. But still, Varta eva cha karmani. I still engage in my karmani, in my prescribed duties. So, for Krishna, there is no duty. He is not obliged. He is the founder of this material creation and the spiritual creation. He is not in want of anything. He is not looking to gain something by doing his activities. Just see, in the spiritual world, Goloka Vrindavan, Krishna is served by hundreds and thousands of gopis or goddesses of fortune, offering him the most wonderful things for his pleasure. And very carefully, Shata Sambhrama Sevyamanam, Chintamani Prakara Sadma Sukalpa Vriksha, Laksha Vruteshu Surabhira Bhipalayantam, Lakshmi Sahasrashata Sambhrama Sevyamanam, Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Shatasambhrama Sevyamanam, Lakshmi Sahasra, thousands of Lakshmis or goddesses of fortune or the gopis, they serve Krishna with so much care and attention, offering him the most beautiful things. So he is not in want of anything. There is no obligation for him to work like we are obligated. One time one devotee was saying, he called for Uber, the taxi. So he got into the Uber and then he recognized that person. And then he struck a conversation, the driver. So this passenger was talking. And the passenger said, "Hey, I remember seeing you somewhere." And he asked who he was. And the driver said, "I am the CEO of such and such company." And then the passenger was surprised and shocked why he is driving Uber. And then he said, "I'm not driving Uber because I'm in need of money." Then what? So I wanted to donate to one non-profit. I said, let me do something for them and I can market them and I can drive their taxi so that I can do something for them. So like that, he's trying to raise funds for them. So therefore he is working out of his own pleasure. He is not obligated to work, but he's working. So like that, the Lord, he is not obligated to come to this world. He's not obligated to work as a Kshatriya, but still he does. Prabhupada is quoting this verses from Shvetashvatara Upanishad in the purport, very important slokas. Natasya karyam karanam cha vidyate. For the supreme absolute truth, Krishna, karyam karanam na vidyate. There is no prescribed duty or something that needs to be done. Parasya Shaktir Vividhaiva Shruyate. He has so many multifarious potencies that everything at the snap of his finger, just by his willing, things are manifest. His potencies are so perfect. But still he comes out of his own sweet will to establish dharma and engage in a particular prescribed duty. When he was with Nanda Maharaj, he was tending cows and doing things befitting a Vaishya. And when he went to Dwaraka as a king, he was performing all the duties perfectly as a king. And he engaged in the battlefield of Kurukshetra as the leader of Kshatriyas. Because in the role of responsible Kshatriya, he has to give protection to the distressed people. So therefore Prabhupada writes in the purport, although he is above all the regulations of the revealed scriptures, he does not do anything that violates the revealed scriptures. So usually people, they highlight the so-called immoral activities of Krishna than his most dutiful activities that he does. Unfortunately, ignorant people bring up these things. Why Krishna used some dubious ways to kill these Kauravas, some of the Kauravas. Why Krishna stole the clothes of gopis. Why Krishna performed Rasa Leela with others' wives. So unless we come to some level of spiritual understanding, we can mistake Krishna's pastimes as mundane and cause offenses. So just think about this thing. Chanting of name of Krishna, we become free from all lust. The proof of the pudding is in the eating. Anybody who is chanting Krishna name, they can testify themselves whether their lust is decreasing, whether their detachment is coming. It is. So chanting of the name of Krishna, we become free from lust. Then how can Krishna himself be lusty? How Shukadeva Goswami, the most renounced personalities, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, great acharyas, how they are discussing and commentating on Rasa Leela if it is mundane. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, being a sannyasi, would not even come close to a woman. But still he was discussing Rasa Leela. He was chanting the name of Krishna. So how pure it must be. So we need to understand in the right perspective the nature of the pastimes of Krishna. Radha Krishna Eka Atma Dui Dehadhari Anyonye Vilase Rasa Asvadana Kari. Actually, Radha and Krishna are one and the same, Eka Atma, but Dui Dehadhari. But they have assumed two bodies. So they enjoy each other, tasting the mellows of love. Anyonya Vilase Rasa Asvadana Kari. So Krishna and Radha are one. Similarly, gopis are Radharani's expansions, confidential associates. So in other words, Radharani and the gopis are Krishna's pleasure potency expansions. Brahma Samhita, Lord Brahma confirms this. Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratibhavitabhis ताभिर्य एव निजरूपतया कलाभिः गोलोक एव निवसति अखिलात्मभूतो गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि. So the gopis and Radharani are eternally Krishna's pleasure potencies, inseparable, and Krishna is eternally theirs. So if we try to separate them, that is immoral, not the other way around. So that is why, before introducing Krishna's loving pastimes, Bhagavatam discusses Krishna's intimate love for many devotees in various incarnations. So the Bhagavatam has to be read in a particular way. The 10th canto of Bhagavatam is Krishna's wonderful pastimes, his intimate leelas. But to understand it the right way, you need to go through all the 9 cantos. So there was one friend of mine who the next day I was talking to him one day, and he was telling about his favorite movie. And I asked him yesterday, he went to the movie. He said, yes, I've seen it many times, my favorite. But I asked him, but you went, the show starts at 6:30 in the evening, but you went only at 8:30. Why? He said, no, I've seen the movie so many times, but for climax, I went again. I like that climax so much. I so much connect to it emotionally. And then I asked, then if you don't see the movie, then how can you understand the climax? He said, yes, I've seen it so many times that now climax is the most important part for me. I can understand everything that happened before the climax. So like that, you see, any good movie, the climax has to be very good for it to become a super hit, right? If somebody who did not watch the entire movie, but if they were to see directly the climax, how will it feel? They won't understand anything about it, isn't it? They will see, hey, why these people are crying for no reason? Why this man is doing this so-called sacrifice, or for whatever thing? They don't understand anything. The characters, their nature, the sacrifices they made, the story, the ups and downs of every character that was involved, and the emotions that were built up and that concluded in that wonderful climax. So if people were to directly see the climax, then they won't feel anything. In fact, they will misunderstand it as a funny movie, meaningless, isn't it? So likewise, the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam is the summum bonum, it's the climax, the most super hit climax. And that will be worth understanding and worth relishing when you understand the journey through the whole Bhagavatam one after the other canto. So Sukadeva Goswami gradually establishes the nature of God, the nature of his energies, his potencies, his incarnations, why he comes. He's dealing with different devotees. Like he describes the dealing of Narsimhadeva's love for Prahlada, Rama's love for Hanuman, Vishnu's love for the residents of Vaikuntha, and Krishna's love for the Pandavas and the Parikshit Maharaj, and then his love for his cowherd boys, his parents. And then comes Krishna's love for gopis. So the focus is not on male-female relationship alone, but the focus is on the relationship between God and his devotee. Whether Narsimhadev embraces Prahlad Maharaj or Lord Rama embraces Hanuman, or Krishna embraces the gopis, all such dealings are based on pure spiritual love. There is no difference between any of those. So we have to understand in that mood. From the pure spiritual angle, it's about eternal love we have with the Supreme Lord Krishna. So for Krishna, all the devotees are on the same platform. He's exchanging his love in the way that they want. Some want to exchange the love as a servant of Krishna. Some want to exchange the love as a friend of Krishna. Some wants to exchange the love as a wife of Krishna. Some wants to exchange the love as the girlfriend of Krishna. And there is nothing mundane about it. Krishna is not ordinary male. He is the supreme personality of Godhead. And the gopis are not ordinary women. So once we understand the basics of this spirituality, that is why Prabhupada wrote this Krishna book, which is the 10th canto. It's not just the stories. There is so much of philosophy embedded so that we can understand Krishna's pastimes in the right perspective. If we don't follow Bhagavatam properly, like one time Prabhupada was saying, so if you don't understand Bhagavatam properly, and then somebody says the name Radha, he's thinking the wife of his barber, she also has a name Radha. So he's thinking about that, how mundane it is. So Bhagavatam is not like that. The pastimes of Krishna are not like that. So Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he mentions the differentiating factor between the love in this world, which is nothing but lust, and love in the spiritual world are the dealings of Krishna and his devotees. That is true love. What goes on in the name of love is nothing but lust in this world. So what is the differentiating factor? Atmendriya pritivancha dharanam kam, Krishnendriya priti ichha dhare premnam. Atma Indriya means for oneself, Indriyas, for my own senses, Priti, Vancha. If I desire happiness for my own senses, and that particular relation is called Kama, lust. But if I desire the happiness of Krishna, and a resultant relation is called love. Krishnendriya Priti Ichha Dhare Premnam. So that is the difference between Prema and Kama. So Krishna upholds morality. He never does anything against morality. Like the gopis, they had worshipped goddess Katyayani to get Krishna as their husband. Just imagine all the gopis they worshipped. They didn't want to marry anyone else. And they eagerly hoped that Krishna would marry them. So there was no possibility that that could happen. So understanding the hearts of the gopis, Krishna decided to fulfill their desires. So he took away their garments. And the idea is that only a husband can do that to the wife. So in that way, he satisfied their desires. So that was the purpose behind that. So you see in Mahabharata, when the Kauravas attempted to insult Draupadi in an open assembly, Krishna miraculously appeared and protected her chastity by supplying her unlimited amount of cloth. So he protects and upholds the morality of his devotees. So it's like you see the sun in the sky. Krishna is like the sun, and the morality is like the sunlight. So morality comes from Krishna. So morality is the creation of Krishna. So we should not judge the sun or look at the sun from the point of view of a lamp, a tiny lamp. If your so-called tiny vision of the world, tiny morality from your perspective, you are trying to judge the creator of morality. From a lamp, you are trying to see the sun. He is much bigger than that. We should not bring God to our conception. We should let God reveal to us. So, if we accept Krishna's position as the Supreme Lord, we can gain some understanding about how all his acts are moral. So, when Krishna steals butter from the houses of the gopis of Vrindavan, how can he be considered a thief when he creates and owns everything? Isn't it? He takes the role of a child to reciprocate the maternal affection of his devotees. So his stealing a prank enhances that sweetness of their loving exchanges. That cannot be compared to mundane stealing, which leads to pain and punishment. So in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Krishna urges the Pandavas to act in certain ways to kill the opponents. But it is just like a police breaking the speed limit to catch the thieves who are speeding away, isn't it? The policemen are breaking the law. Why? They're breaking the law to serve the law, to keep the law, to punish the miscreants. So the so-called breaking of moral codes is for what purpose? Is for the purpose of Krishna, the supreme moral giver, to establish the rule of morality by removing the immoral Kauravas from the power. So when we follow Krishna, it is following morality. Tejiyasam na doshaya, it is said in Srimad Bhagavatam. Just like again the same example, Prabhupada beautifully explains. So just say you have a contaminated place, a filthy place of urine. And then when there is strong sunlight, intense sun, the power of the heat, it can cleanse that place. The contamination is gone. But that contamination cannot affect the sun who is so powerful. So any act which Krishna does, which may appear like that, cannot contaminate Krishna because he is the supreme pure. In fact, anybody who goes to Krishna, they become purified. So Krishna is sometimes described, people think Krishna is impersonal, but actually he is ultimately the person. Even though the Shastra says in Bhagavatam, for example, Anamarupo Bhagavan Anantaha, it is said. Anamarupa means what? He does not have name or form, isn't it? So the Mayavadis, they say, oh, God does not have name or form. The Acharyas say, the word Anama means having no name, but it indicates that the Supreme Personality of Godhead has no material name. Simply by chanting the name of Narayana to call his son, Putropacharitam, this Ajamila, he was dying and he was calling his son Narayana. Oh Narayana, please come, these people are coming to take me away. But he attained salvation simply by chanting the name of Narayana. This means that Narayana is not ordinary mundane name. It is non-material. So therefore the word Anama indicates that the names of the Supreme Lord do not belong to this material world. Similarly, this vibration of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra is not a material sound. And likewise, the activities of the Lord, the form of the Lord, they are all non material, they are spiritual. Janma karma chame divyam evam yovetti tattvataha tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti mameti so Arjuna. If one can understand Krishna's form, his pastimes, his birth, his name, they are all transcendental. They can become liberated at the time of death. So, Krishna comes to show causeless mercy to the devotees as well as to the non devotees. He comes in this material world with his form, original form. He manifests his pastimes. He spreads his holy names. They're all transcendental. So, Anamarupam does not mean Krishna does not have name or form. He has transcendental name and form. His activities are transcendental. He still comes to set things right, to set up dharma again, and to lead people on the right path. I'll stop here. Anyone has any questions or comments? Feel free to unmute yourself. Bhagavad Gita as it is ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol, Hare Krishna.